The Seattle Star, the only paper in Seattle that dares to print the news, is their tagline. And on August 3rd, 1915, the headline, Witnesses Tell of Yogi Antics. Didn't go much on dressing, meaning that there was some nudity. And this is Doomed Planet, the podcast, episode 21. Seattle's Sex Cults. Seattle's Sex Cults. So there is this yogi named Ralph DeBitt, and he seduced someone else's wife. Basically, Dr. Rudolf Gerber and his wife Dorothy were traveling in Europe studying art. Dorothy went back to San Francisco early, and Dr. Gerber got word that she was living in sin with this yogi guy, and he traced them to Seattle, where they were eventually going to go on trial on a charge of improper conduct. And they got arrested while living at the Beaux Arts Village. And believe it or not, this is a village tucked inside of Bellevue, Washington, which is to the east of Seattle, across Lake Washington. It started as like a utopian arts colony. A witness at the trial said that he went into the yogi's headquarters to DeBitt's private room on one occasion and found the yogi unclothed, standing in the presence of Mrs. Gerber. The yogi was down with being naked. And Ralph DeBitt is sitting at the trial, unembarrassed to hear this kind of testimony. Oh, he was naked. And he called Dorothy Gerber by her cult name, which was Isona DeBitt. So that's a little creepy. So Ralph DeBitt seduced Dorothy in San Francisco and brought her back to Seattle's Sorrento Hotel, where they registered as man and wife. And the courtroom for the trial was packed with apparently mostly young women, because Ralph DeBitt was a seducer of women and his cult was mostly women. Funny how that works. Funny how a cult or a religion is really just a patriarch that is trying to fool people so he can get what he wants, which in Ralph DeBitt's case was probably some sex. Deputy Prosecutor George Friend asked C.C. Phillips, a witness at the trial, did you ever see anything at the Beaux Arts Village that would lead you to believe that DeBitt and Mrs. Gerber were husband and wife? She was known as Mrs. DeBitt, said Phillips. I've seen them with their arms around each other on several occasions. I have often seen him kiss her goodbye, and I have seen DeBitt in bathing with some woman. I cannot say if it was Mrs. DeBitt. DeBitt was naked. So the trial concluded on August 4th. Isona DeBitt, as she was known in the yoga cult, according to the Tacoma Times, and Ralph DeBitt are going to have to be retried. Quote, there's been plenty of evidence of improprieties, said the court, but I doubt if the present statutory crime charged has been established, so they might have to be retried on a less serious charge. At every point so far, the yogi has told a story which has court and spectators astounded at his shrewdness and resourcefulness. Whenever cornered, he has answered with great dignity. Ralph DeBitt is one slick operator, and he impressed everyone in court. And Ralph DeBitt is acquitted, and then Dorothy Gerber, who is now Isona DeBitt, files for divorce. Seattle Star, October 16th, 1915. Dr. Ralph M. DeBitt, the yogi, and Mrs. Dorothy Alden Gerber, grand opera singer, lived together in a 3-room apartment while she was the wife of Dr. Rudolph H. Gerber of San Francisco, but did so with propriety. Such was the decision of a Superior Court jury which freed the couple late Friday following their trial on a statutory charge. The jurors deliberated for less than 2 hours. The verdict of acquittal came as a relief to Mrs. Gerber, who exclaimed, "I hardly know what to say. These terrible trials have almost broken me down. Thank God it is over." She and the yogi, surrounded by friends, left the courthouse triumphantly in automobiles. A dramatic incident occurred when Deputy Prosecutor Helsell was summing up the state's case before the jury. "You must not allow your sympathies to sway you," he declared. "Granted that she has been deceived by this man." "You lie!" screamed Mrs. Gerber. "I have not been deceived. He is my best friend and protector. You shall not say I was deceived." Mrs. Gerber declared she felt that a decisive victory had been won in her fight to regain the custody of her daughter, Ariel, who's age 6, from the juvenile court. Judge Dykman, at the time he remanded the little girl to the court for protection, cautioned her that her conduct would have much to do with the child's future custody. Judge Dykman at one point said to DeBitt, "I believe you are the villain in this case," but the jury disagreed. Ralph DeBitt, yoga cult leader, seduced the jury with his intelligence and charm and good looks. And like all good cult leaders, Ralph DeBitt is full of shit and has some really dumb pseudoscientific philosophies. One of those is the Burbanking of souls. And according to DeBitt, this is a process of mental alchemy by which the transmutation of so-called bitter experiences into experiences of pleasure is possible. So he used that bullshit to seduce women, sort of living on a utopian arts colony on Lake Washington. That neighborhood still exists to this day, and the houses are now, worth $1 million each, and there is a private beach with a dock there on the lake. So Ralph DeBitt is going to go on to have a long career as a New Age fuckhead and charlatan. And he wrote some pseudoscientific literature. One book is called After Death States, and another is called A Textbook of the Sacred Science, the Philosophy and Metaphysics for the School of Sacred Science. And I think a lot of the later New Age movement of the 60s through the 80s was influenced by this guy. He's talking about the conflict between church and science. Necessity for past knowledge, personality must be overcome. Health, nutritive and eliminative foods, purification, vegetarianism, law governing rebirth, astral shells, psychoanalysis. And Ralph was eventually kicked out of the Beaux Arts village. He was just a little too radical even for this arts colony. And then there was some courtroom drama, legal shenanigans, where he sued but lost. And the Beaux Arts Village was founded in 1908 and named after the Western Academy of Beaux Arts. And you could purchase membership for $200. And today, membership comes with home ownership, and it was incorporated as a village only in 1954. So it is nestled within Bellevue, but it is its own entity, although it shares, city services, police, and all that stuff. So as of 2010, there were 300 people living in the Beaux Arts Village. Ralph DeBitt was born in 1883 in Kansas. And by 1910, he was a forest ranger in Idaho with a beautiful wife named Jessie. He had 2 children, one of whom died before age of 2. In August of 1910, there was a horrible fire called the Big Blow Up, in which 28 men lost their lives battling the blaze. And after that, Ranger DeBitt, who by all accounts acted honorably during the fire, quit the Forest Service and started his life as a cult leader. Ralph was hanging out in Spokane, Washington, when he came into contact with A.K. Mazumdar, who was promoting a form of Hinduism. And he became a strong follower and advocate of Mazumdar's teachings. And Mazumdar gave him the name of Vitvan. From 1925 until 1942, Debit created the School of Sacred Science, and that was in Bailey, Colorado. But he and his followers called the town Powhatan. And then he later established the School of the Natural Order in Baker, Nevada, that was also known as the Home Farm. And the School of the Natural Order is a group/cult that exists to this day. Debit traveled extensively to lecture about his faith. He died on June 29th, 1964, and there's a photo of his gravesite, behind which is a stunning snow-capped mountain. Debit's mentor, A.K. Mazumdar, is an interesting figure. 1864 to 1953, a long life of being a guru of sorts. He's from a high caste family near Calcutta. And as the legend goes, he's in Spokane, Washington, giving a lecture. And he finds Debit in the crowd and goes up to him and is like, "Where have you been? I found you. I finally found you." "Come out of the woods to the city," he told Debit. "Come out and start your work." So would you rather be a forest ranger in the middle of nowhere in Idaho watching people die from forest fires? Or do you want to be a cult leader living on a lake with a lot of young, beautiful women? You decide. Debit's School of Natural Order still exists. There's a website, sno.org. They don't refer to him as Debit. They refer to him by his cult name, which is Vitvan. And he's an American-born master. He presented a methodology for contacting and experiencing this energy world. And one of the cult members wrote a book called Vitvan, an American Master. The School of the Natural Order is, quote, a non-traditional school offering no academic degrees or credits. Instead, we offer lesson courses and study material for self-development and self-understanding based on the teachings of Vitvan, the American-born master who correlated the ancient wisdom teachings with modern science. That is not true. What is true is that the School of the Natural Order is in the desert community of Baker, Nevada. I mentioned the Vitvan's gravestone is situated in front of beautiful Mount Wheeler, 13,000 feet, beautiful snow-covered mountain. It's a quiet retreat for student visits. Several simple guest rooms are available with a shared bath along with kitchen facilities. And there's time for group interaction and solitary time. And there's lots of camping and hiking, and you cannot bring pets at this time. And there's something great about this. I mean, I want to go to the middle of nowhere in Nevada and be solitary, but not if there's kind of that cult vibe. That would be bad. And of course, the School of Natural Order is a 501c3 nonprofit, so it's tax deductible if you want to donate money to them. If we had the time and resources here at the Doomed Planet podcast, we would sign up for the Summer Seminar 2020, Breaking Objective Identity, Practices for Expanding Self-Awareness. The objective state of consciousness conceals the dynamic reality in which we truly live. Things and objects exist only as images within our respective states of consciousness, but they are not the states themselves. Self-development requires that we break from objective identity, expanding our awareness into a deeper state of reality. Some of that seems legit in a broader sense. Seminar classes begin July 27th, running through July 31st. Meals and accommodations are inclusive of an orientation dinner on Sunday and a farewell breakfast and lunch on Saturday, August 1st. The cost is $700. And of course, the pandemic is affecting even cults. Due to current world affairs, it should be deemed unwise that in the upcoming months to gather in a classroom setting. So we're considering holding the seminar via use of the Zoom platform. If so, it could really be fun. And if you look on a map, the School of Natural Order in Baker, Nevada, Baker is as remote a region as you could possibly get in the continental United States. And again, it would be beautiful and stunning to go hang out there if it wasn't for the pesky cult members wandering around. And that is the partial story of Ralph de Bitt, or Vitvan. And as far as cult leaders go, he's not among the most evil. I mean, there's not the physical abuse or imprisonment and stuff. And, just convincing people that your New Age hogwash mixed with some Hindu mysticism is relevant when it's not.
Hold down.
But what about the Oom cult? Let's talk about them for a brief moment, as long as we're doing some cults of the old days. From the Evening Public Ledger, October 28th, 1922, Sir Paul Dukes, wariest of World War spies, trapped by Cupid in haunts of love cult. Former Mrs. Ogden Mills, disciple of Oom the Omnipotent, was the prize sought. They met in Petrograd, kept love a secret. Writer did notable work while in the Russian army and won his title. And again, the typical cult behavior, the cult leader seduces a rich woman or rich women. When Mrs. Darius Ogden Mills waged her famous war for social supremacy with Mrs. John R. Drexel and tightened the boundaries of the exclusives, narrowing them from the 400 of Mrs. Astor's day to only 150, she thought little that her quest for foreign titles to support her claims would lead through the rather unsavory cult of Oom the Omnipotent, the loving guru of the tantrics. And again, Astor's 400 would be, the society, New York society rank of the 400 richest and most powerful people or families, and then they narrowed that down to 150, and that's kind of the predecessor of the Fortune 500 or lists of the richest people sort of thing. Oom wasn't christened Oom. He invented that name, and he invented his mystic psychic cult, and he invented a lot of ceremonies that finally resulted in his leaving New York and settling in Nyack. And that's where Mrs. Mills comes in. That is, the elder Mrs. Mills doesn't, but her former daughter-in-law, Margaret Rutherford Mills, living near Nyack, came under the sway of Dr. Oom Pierre Barnard and joined his cult. And there she met Sir Paul Dukes, also a convert, and now they are married. It is easy to understand how a society woman might become bored by the constant round of monotonous functions and seek some mental relief in such a cult as Oom's. But Sir Paul doesn't strike the observer as the kind of man to follow blindly into such paths. He is a war hero, one of the most daring and reckless spies in the British intelligence service, with a price on his head if he ever returns to Russia, and he knows how to put up with inconveniences until he gets what he wants. Mrs. Mills, the younger, and Sir Paul met in Petrograd. And there are those who say that Sir Paul made up his mind then and there that she was the woman he wanted. But his work for the British government was not done. Mystic cult ensnares lover from overseas. Sir Paul settled in Nyack, and very naturally, when he found that Mrs. Mills was wrapped heart and soul in the mystic cult of Oom the Omnipotent, he joined. They kept their love affair very secret. Their friends knew that they were a great deal together, but there were no rumors of an impending marriage. They're now spending their honeymoon with the bride's mother, Mrs. W.K. Vanderbilt, in Paris. So yeah, you got to ensnare the bored, rich people who are looking for meaning in their lives if you want to be a good cult leader. From The Sun, May 3rd, 1918. Rich are in clutches of Oom. Well-known alienist tells Swan this: omnipotent one eludes prosecutor. Listen, wealthy men and women are in the clutches of the omnipotent Oom, otherwise known as Dr. Pierre A. Barnard, the originator of that mysterious psychic something cult. A well-known alienist told Judge Swan this over the telephone yesterday, doubtless as a warning to other plutocratic persons who might be lured by the high-sounding name of the Oom's cult. Besides this, the well-known alienist gave District Attorney Swan and Assistant DA James Smith some valuable information to work upon. It would appear as if considerable valuable information will have to be worked on before the tentacles of law will entwine the person of the omnipotent one, for Judge Swan admitted yesterday that no charges had been made against Oom. No arrests had been made in the connection with the raid on his establishment, and in all probability none would be until the investigation now underway has continued for several days. DA's office is as yet in the dark as to the whereabouts of Oom, but Clark Jordan, counsel for the cult leader, is not. He told newspapermen he would produce his client at any hour except midnight, when it would be too late to procure bail if some charge were made against him. Just what charge they are going to confront Mr. Barnard with is more than I can fathom, Mr. Jordan went on. I can't see that he has violated any law. He seems to be conducting a physical culture establishment that any expert on physical training would approve. Mr. Swan was told that Oom had not found pressing business in some other jurisdiction but was still in New York. So yeah, if you're rich, you can do anything, including be in a cult and then leave the cult and marry a prince. Mills' former wife weds Prince Murat. Evening Star, July 9th, 1929. Margaret Rutherford, former wife of Ogden L. Mills, Undersecretary of the Treasury, and later ballet dancer and devotee of the cult of Oom the Omnipotent, was married for the third time yesterday in Paris to Prince Charles Murat, son of Prince Joachim Napoleon Murat. The bride, daughter of Mrs. W.K. Vanderbilt and the late Morris Rutherford, was one of New York society's most spectacular figures. She became the bride of Ogden Mills in one of the most brilliant marriages in the social season of 1911. 8 years later, they were divorced in Paris. Persistence and longevity, these are traits of a good cult leader. And in 1939, Oom is still at it, although he's something they're sort of mocking him in the press. Oom Arcel cast votes for Nova over Bear. Oom the Omnipotent is willing to bet a couple of elephants and a toucan that Lou Nova will raise Max Bear to the ground on June 1st, when these two heavyweights meet for the doubtful privilege of fighting Joe Louis for the championship of the world. Oom ordinarily is not a betting man, but he says that Nova has sold him. Not for nothing, says the loving guru of the tantrics, otherwise Dr. Pierre Barnard, otherwise the omnipotent Oom. Have I baptized Nova by the name of Parahamsa, which in the ancient tongue of India means he who has achieved perfect balance of mind, body, and spirit? Oom, the yoga and real estate man, runs the country club and physical culture camp where Nova is training for Bear. Sharing these quarters are a half-dozen elephants, a leopard, any number of birds from South America that are trained to cuss, a lion, and a tiger. All the zoo needs to make it complete is a cheetah and possibly a square shuta, which is the honest variety of cheetah. Shuta spelled S-H-O-O-T-A-H. Oom is able to praise Lu in Hindustani. Oom the Omnipotent is a healer and builder out of Chicago by way of Seattle, Bald, but still very tough, the loving guru of the cult of Tantrika has led a full life. Some 26 years ago, he ran a cult for the purification of New York City, or such of its citizens as cared to be purified in the tantric manner. What with one thing and another, the cult attracted the attention of the district attorney, and shortly thereafter, moved his cult up the Hudson River to Nyack, where he's now a substantial landowner and the only guy in town who talks Hindustani without a brogue. Is also an expert on baseball, prize fighting, dog racing, and elephants, of which he keeps an ample supply on hand. A very remarkable man, says Lou Nova, who is a very remarkable man himself. While has taught Nova how to tie himself into 28 standard yoga knots for the benefit of the cameramen, the actual training of the young white hope from California devolves upon Mr. Ray Arcel, said by some to be the best trainer and second in the fight business. Mr. Arcel is lukewarm about the Omnipotent, but very high on Nova. So Pierre Barnard, or got his start in Seattle, blackmailing women, seducing and blackmailing women. This is a piece from the Wenatchee Daily World, 13th of May, 1910. It is declared that in several instances, Barnard blackmailed women in Seattle, this crime being easy because of the peculiar rites of the cult. Sex, in other words, and fear on the part of his victims that their actions would become of public knowledge. In one case, it is declared a young woman, now a leading woman in a theatrical company touring the Middle West, pawned jewels to the value of $5,000 and gave the money to Barnard. This young woman is now using every cent that she can to redeem these jewels and has succeeded in regaining possession of a part of them. In all, close to 250 persons, mostly women, found attraction in the promises of God while he was in Seattle. And nearly all of them are out sums ranging from a few dollars into hundreds. Victims sometimes contributed thousands of dollars to And so was already a very rich man, and he kept doing that for decades, cheating people out of their money and investing in real estate. So the Omnipotent, there's so many of these Seattle cults just follow the same MO, which is seduce some wealthy white women and take their money.
Oh, yeah. It's supposed to be tortillas. Oh, tortillas. This is supposed to be
The Tacoma Times, March 13th, 1914. Dahlstrom, guilty. Divine with 32 wives is a white slaver. There's a picture, cult preacher on return to his cell. That term, white slavery, is bothersome and irritating. It sort of implies that, if a white person has been made a slave, that is somehow worse than normal slavery. So Dahlstrom says, Solomon had 700 wives and 300 concubines, and God did not say he had too many. And is our wisdom greater than God's? So says the minister and polygamous head of the colony of Jesus, who according to federal authorities had 32 wives. Seattle, March 13th. After deliberating from 5 o'clock last evening until 11 o'clock today, a federal jury returned a verdict finding Albert Dahlstrom, the Heliga minister said to have 32 wives, guilty of violating the Man-White Slave Act on one count. There were 4 counts against the preacher in the indictment, and he was found guilty of having purchased the railroad ticket by which Miss Edna England of McKinley Hill, Tacoma, was transported from Tacoma to Fresno. God, that should be like a fun road trip movie. Tacoma to Fresno, with some white slavery thrown in. The maximum penalty is 5 years imprisonment in the McNeil Island Penitentiary. And you might remember McNeil Island from our previous Doom Planet episode, Sex Offender Island. Reverend Dahlstrom was taken into court from his cell this morning to hear the verdict and remained quite calm even after the juror's decree was read aloud. He showed no emotion and consulted quietly with his attorneys. Miss Edna England of Tacoma and her parents were in the court at the time. Miss England declared that the cult preacher deserved a more severe punishment than he would receive from the verdict. "Did your daughter live with Dahlstrom before they were married?" asked Fishburne of Mrs. Mary E. Peterson of Minnesota, mother of Martha Dahlstrom. Attorneys for the defense offered vehement objections to this line of questioning and were sustained by Judge Niederer. The blonde pastor seemed pleased with the victory and chatted pleasantly with his attorneys. Hilda England of Tacoma, the first of the England family to have become infatuated with Dahlstrom and who is said to have moved to Minneapolis with him, has not become reconciled to Edna, who is making the sensational charges against the Heliga pastor. The young girl who created surprise by appearing in Seattle a few days ago, after she had written to her mother in Tacoma, intimating that she was about to commit suicide, still has faith in Dahlstrom's cult. Extracts from Dahlstrom's numerous books and pamphlets were introduced in evidence against him during the trial in which he was convicted. And again, you want to form a cult, you need a bunch of horse shit in the form of books and pamphlets, and these days, probably podcasts. So Dahlstrom's Heliga cult. He seduces two sisters. One of them turns against him, and the other is like, yeah, I'm still in the cult.
You know I love you, baby. And that's why it's time to get funky.
So, women getting victimized by cult leaders that seduce them and steal their money. That story is as old as time. And we're done with that section. So now it's time for podcast shout out. Katie Halper has a podcast called The Katie Halper Show. She also co-hosts Useful Idiots with Matt Taibbi. Katie has taken the lead on the story about Joe Biden allegedly raping a woman and how the mainstream media has ignored that until the last possible second. So yeah, Tara Reid has some allegations against Joe Biden, who is a despicable stuffed shirt and someone suffering from cognitive decline. She's persisting with this story, and that takes some courage because the centrist establishment does not want people to know about Joe Biden's bad behavior from the past. Most recently, Tara Reid, the alleged victim's mother, called the Larry King Show a long time ago, and that footage has been dug up. But again, if Biden is the nominee, Trump wins.
Podcast shout out.
For Rusty the Media Watchdog, this time around, we have The Big Heat. This is a film noir from 1953, directed by Fritz Lang. I happened to catch it on the television recently. It stars Glenn Ford as a hard-boiled cop who's fighting police corruption. And with predictable results. His wife is killed by a bomb, kicks some ass, and beats up and kills the corrupt businessmen and the cops that are on the take. And of course, in the final scene, he becomes the police chief. And so no more corruption. And again, no cops were ever corrupt ever again after 1953. Rusty.
The Media Watchdog.
I have in my notes here the Lilliputians. This was a group of midgets or little people that toured the burlesque and vaudeville circuit. Indianapolis Journal, April 30th, 1893. the hit of the season, the greatest novelty, Lilliputians, and their latest and greatest spectacular play, Candy. 4 grand ballets, 100 people. So if we've learned anything here today, it's that don't join a cult, start a cult. And seduce some people and steal their money, and then you will be wealthy and have an exciting life on your vast real estate holdings with some elephants. And as Taffy of the Doomed Planet cult would say, and yes, there is a Doomed Planet cult. If you look on YouTube hard enough, you will find it. Taffy would say, we're all going to die anyway, so you might as well party. And this has been Doomed Planet, the podcast, episode 21. Seattle's sex cults. Goodbye.